Same principles, same words being spoken into being, and yet because it flowed through two different people, two different musicians with different backup, it was almost a very different song, wasn't it? And I would be willing to bet that we would also have a different experience if Tim McGraw sang it next week, right? I'd be okay with that, Jackson, if you can get him for next week. I'm just saying. He could sing the ABCs and we'd all be like, yay! So, my sister tells me that this is the week that's called Cowboy Christmas, because this is when all the rodeos happen. And so the rodeo guys and women are going back and forth to all the different rodeos they can fit in this week. And one of the things that I know is that our tradition around right after Christmas is to go back to basics. So as far as I'm concerned, Happy New Year. It's time to talk about the basics of science of mind. And one of the most basic, fundamental beliefs that we hold is that we can be creative, that the divine nature is one of creativity, and that we share in the image and likeness, and therefore the nature of the divine. Everything we do is creating everything we experience. Everything we believe is creating our world. That's one of the most fundamental beliefs in this philosophy. And the piece that we miss often, and that gets us in the most trouble, is realizing that 90% of those beliefs are subconscious. You don't even know you're holding them. And as a country and as individuals, our job is to wake up to the beliefs we didn't know we were holding. Now, I don't know about you, but there have been times I looked in the mirror and realized what I had been believing about myself or somebody else and really wanted to go hide under the bed. Because, really? You ditz? Where the heck did you get that? That's not true. Ghosts can be like Casper. They can be friendly. Or, actually, I suppose it wouldn't do me any good to go under the bed in that case. Sorry, I geeked out on Supernatural all week, so part of me is thinking monsters and stuff. The way we perceive creativity is much bigger than, say, we have all of these different beautiful flowers. Aren't they gorgeous? We have all these different beautiful flowers, and to us, they are beautiful. Yesterday, they were part of the beauty of a celebration of life service that the Bowmans put on for her, I believe it was either stepfather or father-in-law, named Bill. Stepfather? Thank you. Yeah, father-in-law would be about the same age group, so cool. But as we look at them, each and every one of us is going to have a different experience of those flowers, right? For me, my first thing was to take that one and move them away from me, because they have lilies in them, and I like to breathe without all of the allergies kicking in. The roses can stay. We like them very much. And the thing is, they're all beautiful in their own way. But the principle, the divine ideal of beauty has shown up in some very different ways today, hasn't it? And then there's that one, which is also cute. The divine idea of you will only show up as you are. The divine idea of you may grow and change over time. I am certainly not the same person I was at age 12. This center is going to grow and change over time. Yes, we have chairs here. We also have people on YouTube who are probably going to be watching this at 2 a.m. in their jammies. Most of us don't show up physically here in our jammies, although that would be interesting. We could do it. It was interesting, yes, but that was Christmas. That was different. Just to recap what we talked about last week when somebody asked me about our V sign. And if you can get in close on that, that'd be great, because I don't know if everybody can see it. It's a little out of the way. So this is, what is this? It's the what? It's the teaching symbol. It does not stand as V for visitors. We're not waiting for the mothership. Yes, I used that joke 2 weeks in a row. The general idea behind this is that the top part is divine spirit. It is pure principle. It is the ideals. It's the beauty that eventually became all of these flowers. But beauty with a capital B. Now, spirit involves itself, it's called involution, in this world, which is its creation. The middle part is the act of creating, and the bottom part is what we call the physical world, creation. So you have creator, creation, and a verb in the middle that allows the creator to move into its creation. There's a circle all the way around it. That means that it's all God. So these flowers are as much a spiritual being as any Christ that has ever walked the earth. The V comes down into being. God as us has an experience, and then we think about it. We learn from it. We add information by studying and learning and having a full experience mentally and emotionally. And it goes back up, and now we have a new idea. We have a, oh my goodness, new thought. That's part of where the name comes from. Now, many people leave this off, and it's pretty tiny on this one, but there's a hook at the end of that V to show that we are constantly moving divine ideals into being, having the experience and going, yeah, or not doing that again. If you're wondering about the not doing that again, go look at your high school yearbook. Check out your hair. Most of us are like, oh no, never again. I was a child of the 80s, so once they got rid of aerosol hairspray, it was all over for us. So you have a new thought about it, and now you can create a new experience by doing the whole process over again. Here's the part that I believe got left out in the original version of this. Within here is the mental experience, then the emotional experience. We tend to be a very heady group. We, like most Americans, live from about here up. Yes? We're all up in our heads, right? We even have verbiage for that. And when I say somebody is all up in their heads, I generally mean they're not a very happy person in the moment because they're overthinking it. You know, if you're happy and you know it, overthink. You're surely gonna blow it if you're happy and you know it, overthink. We learn by music sometimes. So if we can get down into our hearts and in our bodies and have an experience of it, an understanding of the emotions that are attached to our thoughts, it's kind of like moving the foundation, unhooking the energy lines to our buttons. You ever, stood there by the walk, don't walk sign and push the button over and over again and nothing ever happens? It's because we think it's connected to something. If it's not connected to something, you can push it all day long, nothing gotta happen. What if the biggest button you've got, the one that your mother knows about, or your spouse, knows if they push that button, there's gonna be an explosion. It's gonna go boom. I'm seeing all the partners look at each other like, yeah, I know that button. What if you disconnected it? Somebody else could push it all day long. You wouldn't even notice. One of the benefits of doing this work is that you unhook all your buttons. And the people who think they're going to get you by pushing those buttons that are going to have fun at your expense, because some people do that, they get really bored and they wander off and out of your life. It's awesome. I've had several people just wander out of my life once I unhooked the button they were pushing. And my rule is we both have to be happy about them leaving. and the way it happens. So I've had people get to retire early. Surprise, that's what she wanted to do in the first place. And now I don't have to work for her, which is awesome. If we will do this work, we get to take our very lives and turn them into a work of art. So, what is ours to do in this process? Because honestly, the energy of the movement is God's. The energy of movement in this is spirit at work. Our part, and this is another part where we tend to get in trouble, is we think that we take this seed idea and we plant it in the ground and then we make it grow. Who here has a garden? Who here has learned that once you plant that seed, all you do is water it and then don't touch it? Do not dig it up to see how it's doing. Apparently, that's one of my problems. It might explain my gardens. There's a lot in my life of leave the seed alone, Sibley. Put your hands behind your back and stop helping. Does anyone else have one of those helpers in their lives that you, or have you been that helper? Come on now. You know this. Where your helping stopped helping, and people started looking at you and kind of backing away slowly because they knew you were coming to rescue them. At the beginning of this year, I decided that since I turned 49, that I was going to have a Jubilee year. Now, for those of you who are not biblically based, and that's a lot of us, 7 in the Bible is considered the number of fulfillment. There's 7 days in a week. There's 7 years in a cycle, and then you're supposed to let the field lie fallow. There's, that 7th day is sacred. So 7 sevens is a great big fat hairy deal of lying fallowness. The general idea is that this is a year of Jubilee. And biblically speaking, the idea was that during that year, during that technically 50th year, because you don't start at 0, or you do start at 0, all the slaves that were debt slaves were set free. Debts were completely forgiven. Imagine if we did that with student loans. Imagine if we did that with everybody's mortgage. Your credit cards, 0 balance. You don't care what the interest rate is, thank you very much. Because whatever percentage of 0 is still happy. So for this year, my spiritual practice was to engage with the energy of a Jubilee year. And so I had this thought, this divine thought, and it was one of freedom. And as I came down and had an experience, I had to take a look at all the things, all the beliefs I hold about freedom. Now, little tangent here. I'm telling my story because it's the one I have permission to tell. I won't break anybody else's confidence by telling their story. So if it sounds like the Kathleen show today, it's only because I'm the one allowed to tell all my dorky stories. Back on point. We talk about freedom. Now that's going to mean different things to different people, right? For the wage slaves that still exist on this planet, that means something different than my, free to paint my bathroom whatever color I want. For them, it means they can leave their slave owners and go live a life where they are not indebted and will never work off that debt. For the child brides, that most of us don't agree with the idea of a 14-year-old marrying a 40-year-old, right? Especially when she has not been consulted on that particular, she doesn't get to pick out her dress because her mom's invested. She doesn't get to pick out him. Her idea of freedom is going to be being able to take care of herself, get her divorce, or stay with him according to her own belief system, to be in charge of her own life. I was watching something the other day about child brides and how many of them there are in America, where there are only 2 states in this union where you must be 18 years old to get married. 2. And so these women that were on this particular round table were talking about being married and then pregnant at age 15 to a man who was in his 40s in America. Her idea of freedom in the beginning was being allowed to go to school. She couldn't call in sick to school because she wasn't old enough to sign her own note. And she couldn't get a divorce because she couldn't enter into a contract because she wasn't 18, and so she couldn't leave him either. So their idea of freedom is a little more complicated, and there's a great big story behind it, right? I mean, that's not a, oh, so what, I'll unsubscribe to this particular thing I'm stuck in. Some people have to work really hard for their freedom. For me, my hard work was mostly internal. I had to let go of the idea of being a slave to my family obligations. Anyone else feel like they had some family obligations to get past? I gave them an entire, 3 degrees, 2 masters and a bachelor's, before I realized that I was not obligated to go to college for my parents. I thought I owed them that. I am now free of that idea. If I choose to do a PhD, it's going to be because it's fun. Yes, I know that's not your version of fun, it's mine. I decided to be free of the idea that it was mine to do. And I went back to the basics of science of mind, which say it is done unto you according to your belief. It's not our energy that's making this world. It's not our personal willpower that's making this world what it is. What is ours to do is to hold a vision. And then spirit moves it into form. There has been a vision of this place. Albin talks about it all the time. Albin Wisniewski is one of our longtime people here. And he talks about having held a vision for 20 years as to what this place can be. And he's been telling me he's seeing it happen now. Could you hold to a divine idea for 20 years? If it resulted in you living your absolute best life that is even better than you thought it would be. It's a challenge. I have trouble holding on to an idea for 5 or 6 hours. Now, Ernest Holmes will tell you that it is not us doing the work. In his textbook, he talks about how, you go to a practitioner, the healing isn't on the practitioner. There is no personal responsibility in healing, is what he writes. What he says is the practitioner sees the client or patient, however you want to say it, more clearly, has a higher idea about that person and who they really are, and that simply moves into being by the power of the one mind. Now, one of the things I forgot to say when I first came out is this happens to be Birthday Sunday, which means that if you were born in the month of July, you get a gift certificate, essentially. It's a bookmark with the names and numbers of the practitioners who are willing to do a free session with you. They will sit with you and see a higher idea about whatever it is you talk about, and then allow spirit to pull that into being in your experience. It's kind of like having the best friends ever who will move that heavy couch for you every single time. Every single time you choose to move on and move into a bigger and nicer house, spiritually speaking. God is the friend that shows up and carries all the heavy furniture. Think of it that way. Ernest wrote, "What we now experience, we may cease experiencing if we have the will and the imagination to set our vision in an opposite direction and hold it there. It is ours to hold a vision." Now, you might have noticed in Jackson's office that there is now a little box with very, very detailed work in it. There's a a guitar that's about that big, and it's been strung by hand. And the artist who did that spent a lot of time on it. I don't know that she's taking requests, so I won't put her on the spot that way. But it's an absolutely beautiful piece of work. Part of the new thought we have to have is the idea that if we look at that every single week, Jackson's office might turn into a music room that is this size. Sometimes you have to turn it into a joke. For those of us who have the mental blocks and the emotional conflicts, and we've been holding to a vision of something, say freedom from debt, or freedom to be in that relationship you've always wanted, you might have to play with it a little bit. When I came into this teaching, I was way beyond broke. I had been there for years. I had no idea what it felt like to feel financially stable. In part because, bless my mother's heart, raising 3 kids alone with dad in the military and usually overseas, she was stressed out all the time. And what she chose to aim her stress at was money. If she aimed it at us, she'd get in trouble, right? So she was forever worrying about the budget being broken. Guys, we were going to private schools. We owned the house and the toy car that was the second one. We were not about to end up in the poorhouse, but I believed that we were. I needed a new thought around money. I needed a new thought about what freedom meant. Did I need more money? No, we had plenty. I needed a different thought. And so having had that experience, having that old belief system happening, I recreated for myself the experience of poverty. And I decided I don't like it. I'm trying to remember who it was that said, I've been rich and I've been poor, rich is better. I want to say it was Mae West or somebody like that. And so I had a new thinking. I went to our financial freedom classes. I learned this philosophy which said there is a whole deeper way of looking at prosperity. And so today, yes, I am financially sound. Yes, I have a corner office on the top floor of the building with windows. When I was working for the public defender's office, lawyers who had actually gone to lawyer school so they could be super successful, took pieces of paper and drew windows on them so that they could have a window. Because that was their idea of freedom and luxury. If you think about it, I suppose I could get a little upset because Jackson's office is the only one with a bathroom in it. And yet, here we are with the symbols of success if we choose to see them that way. At one point in my getting past my poverty ideation, I noticed that the bigger numbers were mostly zeros and commas. Zeros are nothing, so I don't have to worry about that part. I had the nuns when I was in school, and they taught us grammar very, very well. I have absolutely no problem with commas. And so rather than trying to manifest more money where I had a huge mental block and I wasn't quite so far along, I started praying for commas in my paycheck. And do you know it worked? At which point I started saying, okay, how about 5 digits? I've got 5 right here. I believe in 5 digits. I can manifest that twice. Actually 4 times if you think of toes as digits. So I want 5 digits in my paycheck. I'm just saying, guys. Maybe not this week. But it could happen, couldn't it? There are people who make 5 digits every single month, and to them it's like, well, duh. If I am willing to have that new idea, if I am willing to allow myself to grow into all of the God and all of the good that I am willing to experience, even if it takes 20 years holding that vision, this will go to work for me and make it happen. Now, one of the things that happens along the way is your ideal changes. To me, prosperity now has precious little to do with money. It has to do with the ability to be a minister who makes a difference in this world, to be part of a congregation that is out there in the world serving our brothers and sisters in Christ not because we need to rescue them, but because our liberation is bound up with theirs. True prosperity for me means eating real food and not just popping dinner as I have done in the past. Yes, it's fast. It's not real food, though, right? I mean, we'll all admit to that so long as we're not actually in the process of popping dinner right now. To me, prosperity is taking time to sit down and eat breakfast. That is what rich people do. To me, prosperity is now having space where my friends can come visit. I have a place to put them, and it's clean, and it's pretty, and it has colors I like. That's true prosperity. The other part is time to enjoy it. It's the fun of creating that next huge, audacious vision. And so what I find is as this process moves us along, first we manifest the stuff we said we wanted, and then we get a whole new bigger picture of what we say we could have. Yes? My idea of prosperity changed because I got a bigger vision. As you walk through this process, as you use these tools, including prayer and meditation, including meeting with practitioners to be supported in letting go of your old limiting beliefs, what you will find is your idea of rich, your idea of powerful, your idea of peace, your idea of love is going to change. It will get better. And you get to have that experience too. Using this particular tool. We use this tool every time we pray. And so we're using it right here and right now. As I come down and move into prayer with everybody. Now here's another richness. There is my consciousness, and then there's our consciousness. This is our consciousness, and you know what? We're all tied to the one mind. And so join me now in accepting and reveling in the power of the mind of the entire universe, the multiverse, all the way down to the littlest particle, the smallest quark, all the way up to all of the galaxies put together that we've ever found. This is the energy of life itself, and it is alive and experiencing the world as all of us right now. And so I call upon that oneness. I call upon, I call upon the knowledge, the absolute bone-deep truth, that which is written into the scripture called our DNA, that says we are one with that vast energy. And I call forth the experience of evolving into a new idea, a new thought about who we are and what freedom means. Freedom meaning for everyone. Freedom to go out and create. Freedom to be the whole people that we are. Freedom to create more good in the world as a whole. And freedom from any belief that anyone wants to stop us from doing that. Any belief in being threatened or somehow being separate from that God, from that good that is our birthright. I celebrate that spirit is what it has always been, right here, right now, fully present, able to do all, able to know all at the same time. In us, through us, and for all of us right now. And from that gratitude, I just release this word, knowing it's already done and holding to that vision of joy, reveling into that vision of joy, that it may come to be. And so it is.